Welcome back to Two Up Front, where we're talking about the world's game from an American perspective. Joining us now on the phone as part of our Women's Soccer Spotlight is NWSL, Bundesliga, and Australian League veteran, as well as midfielder and captain of the Seattle Reign, number 11, Keelin Winters. Keelin, welcome to Two Up Front.
Thank you for having me.
Let's get right into it, Keelin. First thing I want to mention, we actually do have a Milwaukee connection, so we're based out of Milwaukee, and your dad actually played for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yes, he did.
part of that famous Kareem Abdul-Jabbar trade.
Yeah, and my mom is from Green Bay, so I still have lots of family back in the area.
Well, then that begs the question: are you a Packers fan at all?
I don't really have an allegiance towards any team. And of course, if my mom was in the car with me right now, then my answer would be, well, obviously.
Well trained. Good. Well, let's get into the sport that we like to talk about on the show, Keelin, and that is soccer. And of course, NWSL season, it's been a bit up and down for Seattle this year, but a big win this past weekend. 5-2 over the Orlando Pride. Great games all around, but like to highlight especially yourself, Kendall Fletcher, played awesome in the back and obviously got a goal as well. Jessica Fishlock had a great game. So it's been up and down for Seattle. Is this the win that launches Seattle into perhaps a winning streak?
I sure hope so. This season has been different from the last two seasons because at this point in the season, for the last 2 years, we've been definitely in the top three. And at this point last year, we were kind of pulling away from everybody. We ended up winning the league regular season by like 13 points, I think. So at this point, we're I think in 5th or 6th place, 2 points behind a couple of teams. So if we get another win in Portland this weekend, we'll be caught back up with everybody, but definitely we needed the win this past weekend. But maybe even more so, I think we needed a good performance, and I think this was our best game of the season so far. And I know there's still work to be done, but one thing that our coach Laura Harvey has always told us is that if you put in a good performance, the result will take care of itself, and that was the case this weekend.
Yeah, one of the things too that I've noticed since July 2nd was obviously you had Kuasami come into the team. Seems that she's been a little bit of the medicine that Seattle's been looking for. A couple of draws in there, a couple of wins with her on the team, and of course, you got this big game against Portland. What's it like playing with somebody, who obviously has the Olympic experience, the World Cup experience?
Yeah, you can't replace that experience. She is an amazing teammate. How comfortable she is on the ball is something that she adds so much to this team. And in a league like the NWSL where it's fast, it's very high pressure, you need somebody who can get on the ball under immense pressure and still maintain the composure. And Naho is that. I mean, the amount of times that she's able to receive the ball under pressure and create with composure, it kind of calms the whole team down. And yeah, as soon as she's come in, her first game back here in Seattle, I think she had 2 goals. So I think that speaks for itself.
July 2nd, 2 goals against the Boston Breakers in her first game back. You did mention your game against Portland coming this weekend. Of course, Portland has several players out on international duty. I think it's about 5 or 6 of them. You've done well against Portland this season, 2 draws so far. They're kind of a wooden animal without some of their superstars. Is this when Seattle gets to buck the trend and get the first win in this Cascadia derby?
I think so. And you mentioned that they are missing some of their key national team players. So from our point of view, while we're missing Hope and Megan Rapinoe due to the Olympics, I think that we have players like Naho Kawasumi, we have Kim Little, Jess Fishlock, and now's the time when we really have to take advantage of their players that they don't have, and we really need to win the next 2 games against them. And if we do that, then we're putting ourselves in a very good spot gearing towards the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. Last year you guys finished the season on an 8-game winning streak, or unbeaten streak, rather. Do you see that possibly happening? I mean, you've got the Olympic break coming up, so some of the injuries that you do have, they'll get to rest their legs and whatnot. But do you see a possibility of repeating what you did last year?
Sure, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. However, I will say that going into this season, after speaking with Laura in preseason, something that she definitely wanted to make sure of this year was that we peak at the right time. So if you look back at last year's semifinal game, we probably played the best we played all season. So you can argue that we peaked one game too early. We ended up losing in the final game for the second year in a row, and so that one really stung. And I think going into this season, that was our focus and our drive. So while we may have dropped a few points up until this point, it was not that we intended to drop points, but we were preparing for this season with the idea in mind that we need to peak at the right time, and we want to play our best game in that final game and bring home the championship to Seattle. Yeah,
it has been an odd season, hasn't it, for Seattle, but also for Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City wins the league last year, and they're still battling at the bottom of the table.
Yeah, and I think, Kansas City, they have Sid LaRue got pregnant, Amy Rodriguez, again, pregnant, so, they're missing two of their biggest goal scorers, so, and not only two of their biggest goal scorers, but two of the biggest goal scorers in the whole league. So that's obviously going to be a tough tough two players to replace. I don't think you can replace those two. So, yeah, it's been a different year for Kansas City, but I'm sure that they'll be back in years to come. I have no doubt about that.
Talking with Keelin Winters of the Seattle Reign here on 2 Up Front. Keelin, I do have to ask you one question about the July 9th game against Western New York Flash. We won't spend a lot of time because I don't like to focus too much on the past. However, it was disappointing, obviously, from a fan's perspective to see a game played on a field that was about 58 yards wide, if even maybe 100 yards long. Every goal kick goes to the other team's penalty area. Every throw-in ends up being a long throw-in. Basically, any restart is taken from a dangerous place. I've had a few people ask, was there ever a moment that both teams looked at the field and said, we can't do this? Or was it, hey, these are the conditions, we're going to go on and play?
Yeah, I think that the hard part is, as a player, that you should never be put in that role where you show up to a game, you travel all the way across the country, and you show up to the venue and say, now we're not going to play on this field. I mean, that should never happen. And it should never be put on the players or the coaches to make that decision. I think that it could have been dealt with well beforehand, but it wasn't. But I think moving forward, for one, I don't think that'll ever happen again. And for two, I think the NWSL has done a lot of really good things. We're in our fourth year as a league, which is 1 year longer than every other league has lasted. And I think there's reasons behind that with the support of U.S. Soccer and the other national team federations and associations has been massive. And I think YouTube video views has gone up some crazy percentage in the last year. And so moving forward, hopefully we're going to have, in years to come, a TV deal. I think slow growth is going to happen over years. Unfortunately, you're going to have, every once in a while, you're going to have some sort of setback. But it's just, how you deal with it as players and as coaches and as administration. And, I think Jeff Plush has, came out and apologized.
And genuinely as well, I have to say. I did read that apology from the commissioner, and I had even tweeted out, good for him to take responsibility for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. And people argue whether that was too little, too late. The fact of the matter is that there was an apology, which was the right thing to do. And moving forward, I think the league is only going to grow as long as I think people also take into account the positives that are happening within this league.
Absolutely. So speaking of the NWSL, as I mentioned in your introduction, you've played in the Women's Bundesliga with FFC Turbine Potsdam. You've played in the Australian League with Western Sydney Wanderers. Of course, you were part of the Boston Breakers of the WPS as well. The other Seattle team of the W League, the Seattle Sounders, for a year between leagues. Just curious the difference between all these different leagues that you've played in.
Yeah, so the American leagues, all the players are super athletic, but I think the overall, the high pressure in the NWSL and the WPS is unmatched in either the Bundesliga or the Australian W League. And there's, I think the foreign players, the Australians and the European players come into this league and are surprised by the pace and the high intensity of this league, which can be definitely a pro and a con at the same time. Whereas if you go over to the German league, not to say that the high pressure isn't there, but it comes in bursts. And it's definitely, I would say, less high pressure than it is here in the States. And then the Australian W League, it's a great league in terms of they run their season during the NWSL off season. So as far as timing goes, it's pretty ideal. You finish your NWSL season in September, October, and then you head over to Australia for the endless summer.
Right.
During the off season. And I think every player every American player who's gone over to play in Australia has loved it. Not only the culture and the atmosphere of the country of Australia, but also the league in general. It's continuing to grow. It definitely still needs some work as far as the support, the fan support, financial support, and treating, I guess, each club treating their players as professionals and having a professional environment. But it's a fun league to play in, especially during the NWSL off season. And I've been telling a lot of my teammates that they should go and play and get games in over there.
Keelin, I want to thank you so much for joining us on Two Up Front. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Seattle takes on the Portland Thorns in Portland on Saturday, July 30th, 10:30 Eastern. I wish you the best of luck with the rest of the season, and thanks again for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Keelin Winters, captain of the Seattle Reign, spending time here on Two Up Front. Wonderful to talk with her, and we're going to go to a break. When we come back, more exciting discussions on Two Up Front.